good evening. Once again on Thursday night, we are back with Think Fast. We, as always, ask you if you're watching, you're joining along with us. Be sure and click like, leave us a comment, let us know you're here. We do try and keep an eye on those as we chat and do our episodes here. Before we get going, I want to tell you about a couple things. First of all, I know a lot of Christians are headed to CYC. Is that in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge? Will,
Pigeon Forge. Yep.
All right. Focus Press will be there. Joe and I will not, but Will and his wife Rachel will be there. They'll have a table. Be sure to stop by, say hello, see what we're up to over there. And so if you're going to CYC, be sure to check that out. Anything to add, Will?
No, I was just gonna say you get the best looking Think Deeper host that's gonna be there. So hey,
watch yourself. That may be true, but watch yourself.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, the best looking one there will be my wife for sure. But no, seriously, like Jack said, stop by and say hello. We're gonna have obviously some products and some cool things lined up. So yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody.
Yeah, so be sure to check that out if you're going. I also want to point people to our Think Deeper podcast episode this week, available on YouTube, on your podcast app, wherever. We talk evangelism, but we're doing an evangelism challenge. We really want to get as many people joining this as possible. Really just building better evangelism habits is what we're trying to do. And so check out the episode to see what that's all about, see what the challenge is. We hope you'll join us with it in doing it. And if you are, let us know. Be sure to reach out to the page or wherever you see it, if you watch it on YouTube, whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's what we're up to. And let's go ahead and get into this week's Think Fast. We're talking about the tone police. We're calling this one Defund the Tone Police. And you say, well, what is the tone police? And we're drawing this, we're trying to talk about things that are in the news. We saw something very interesting this week with conservative commentator Matt Walsh. He did a straightforward, pretty to the point video about a trans activist named Dylan Mulvaney. I think is a male that walks around pretending to be a female and very flamboyant about it.
One of the most prominent voices. This was the man that actually got an invite to the White House. Sat down,
giant TikTok star
with Joe Biden. Yeah, the big TikTok star. Kind of, again, as far as I know, one of the main voices in the trans activist community,
and a big influence over young people. I mean, millions of followers. And so Walsh just did a video saying, "You're not a woman. You're not what you're claiming to be. You're not beautiful like you're claiming to be. Like somebody needs to sit you down and tell you this." And he was immediately hit with just about every other conservative outlet saying, well, what you said was right, but how you said it just came across mean. It came across like you're angry about this. You shouldn't have said it that way. And so that's the tone police. That we saw that and we went, man, that happens to us a lot. That happens.
We agree, but
right. And that happens a lot in the church. Anytime somebody says, "Thus says the Lord," somebody goes, "Well, yeah, but man, if you say it like that, it's going to hurt their feelings."
The ire is directed not at the sinner and the one that's doing the wrong, but the one that's actually speaking the message.
Right. There's always somebody running cover for falsehoods, running cover for sins, running cover for the person who wants to sin and is endorsing sin and doing bad things by saying, yeah, but how you say it wasn't right. So maybe we're going to discount it. Like, I'm not going to listen to what you had to say because I didn't like the way you had to say it. Again, I run into this pretty frequently. Comments, feedback I get on articles. Will's dad, Dr. Brad Harrow, probably gets this more than anybody of, well, yeah, you're right, but we can't say amen anymore. We've got this tone policing thing. Now, tone does matter. We're going to talk about in a little bit that this is not licensed to just be as rude as you want to be at all times. But on the other hand, we've got to develop a stomach for truth, no matter how it's served to us. And so let's get into that a little bit. I don't know. We didn't have anybody teed up to go next, but whoever wants to jump in on that and get to why this is such an issue, why we're really not fans of this. We are coming out strong against this idea of tone policing.
So one of the things that my mind goes back to is when Roe v. Wade was overturned. And this was really kind of my first introduction to this idea of the tone police, where I know us three and many others, my dad, of course, got on social media and we were excited. It was one of those things that, hey, this is a landmark day in our country. Let's celebrate this. Let's be excited about it. And I remember several posts from preachers, from members of the church that basically were like, look, we need to be very careful about the tone we use with these people. And the premise behind all of this is, again, we've hit on this before, that they think we're going to nice people into the church, that the nicer we are, the better our chances of changing their mind is going to be. That was the whole thing with the Roe v. Wade. Well, listen, you're not going to change their mind acting like this. And what caught my attention with the Dylan Mulvaney, Matt Walsh video, if you get the chance to go watch, I think it's about an 11-minute response video from Matt Walsh. One of the points he makes that I thought, I guess it never hit me like that before, is that he pointed out, when has being nice to somebody really ever changed anybody's mind? When has that worked in culture? When has that worked when there's a culture war? When there's a culture war going on, when has the nicer side won out? It simply doesn't happen. And so if you're going to be on the side, if you're going to take the position of, well, we need to be the tone police and be nice to everybody, and that's going to eventually win them over, it's not the way it works in a culture war. When you have two conflicting ideologies, not just two, and one of the things, once again, that he says is, look, I'm not open to a dialogue. I'm not open to compromise. This is one of the things you'll hear a lot, right? We just need to come together and have a dialogue about this. When you're talking about perverting gender and gender surgeries on children, no, there's no dialogue to be had there. There's no compromise to be had there. And the scary thing for me, and then Joe, I'll hand it over to you, is obviously not necessarily with the transgender side of things, but within the church, you hear this tone police thing come out quite a bit. Would Jesus really have said it that way? Is that really the spirit of Jesus that we need to have? And what's interesting to me, last thing, Joe, it's all yours. Preachers. I'm gonna call out preachers here for just a second. Preachers have this tone. Preachers have this very firm voice when it comes to two things: baptism and instrumental music. Everything else, that stand firm, don't really care what you think tone, goes out the window. And I think it's high time we adopt this tone in other places other than just baptism and instrumental music.
Why do you think it's just those two things? Because they're going to get no blowback.
Exactly.
If you're in the church,
no controversy
preaching,
there.
There's no controversy. There's no having to stand for difficult truths, because if somebody doesn't believe it, they're probably not in your church. They're Baptist or somebody else. And so it's very easy to get up and proclaim the same things everybody knows, which is why doing Plan of Salvation sermons is I'm sorry, it's dumb to the church. You're not there for the visitors, you're there, but it's the controversial truths. Truth is difficult in this culture. There's a time maybe it wasn't as difficult. There was a time when maybe in the 50s, 60s, truth was kind of like, yeah, left and right type of thing. Yeah, they're doing some bad things, but we understand, we can kind of reach across the aisle. It's the Overton window. Now we're all the way over and we're going, yeah, but we should still reach across the aisle. Like, you're reaching across the aisle with Satan himself. Okay, let's stop pretending that it's anything other than that. But me as a therapist, you'd think that, I'm not saying feelings aren't important. I'm not saying emotions aren't important. I think we have an over consideration of feelings in our culture, like to the nth degree, to the 1000%, because we've allowed emotion to rule everything. It's the tyranny of emotion, which is, if I get emotional, I win. And the worst thing is you get the Benedict Arnolds who are stabbing Matt Walsh in the back. We're on your side. We're conservatives. It's like, it's one thing for the left to hate him. It's another thing for conservatives themselves. That's the danger of the tone police, and why we felt it was worth addressing, is we're talking to people who agree, and yet they still come out against it instead of standing up for what's difficult. Fear of feelings, fear of allowing somebody to kind of dominate where this goes based on their feelings, because, hey, I don't want to offend. It leaves the door open to falsehoods. It leaves the door open to all sorts of issues. And that's why it
leaves the door open to compromise, is the way I would put it. Yeah.
Well,
Correct.
And these guys, the tone police, their job is to keep people from feeling the heat of these truths, these difficult truths. That is what they do, is they basically wall off a certain territory of the Bible, of uncomfortable truths, to say, I'm not going to let that come into contact with people's lives because they might not be happy about it. Well, what we're dancing around in all of this is, the Bible does not anywhere say be nice. It says be kind. It says be loving. These are important things that we will not abandon. We should not abandon. But there are times where saying something is not nice. It's going to hurt, but they need to hear it. I wrote an article a while back of, there's a lot of mornings that I get up and I weigh. The scale is not very nice to me in the morning. I don't throw it away because I need to hear what it has to say. I need that feedback, even if it hurts my feelings. Even if I look at it and I'm kind of down, like, well, I haven't been doing too good lately. I need to, because that gets me on the right track. And I can't lie to myself when that truth is staring me in the face. And we need that. That's not very nice, but it's needed. It's loving. And these guys, these tone police people in the church who say, that's just going to drive people away. That's just divisive. That's unloving. No, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hurt somebody's feelings in the right way, not being mean to them and going out of your way to get digs in at them and all that, but just to say, this is true. This is how it is. This is, the stand that we need to take. But instead, rather than doing that, the stand they take is to turn their back on the truth and fight the people who are trying to, bring the truth forward. And so the church has a big problem with this because there's a lot of that gatekeeping, and it keeps preachers' jobs. It keeps the salaries coming. It keeps I'm going to be real careful here. It keeps, popularity, a certain invitation structure to places you want, like keeping your foot in the door, open job ladder, all that stuff of, well, we're just not going to touch this stuff because, well, people are floundering, people are dying, and you've got to talk about the full counsel of God, whether people like it or not.
I'm going to hit out at elders for this one, though, because if we had more elders this is going to sound mean, I'm just going to say it as it is. If we had more elders with a backbone that would stand behind their preachers when their preachers said difficult things, we wouldn't have to worry about this. But preachers, what incentive do they have when literally they've been fired on the spot and given a week to get out of the parsonage? The elders go, well, we don't like that. And you just alienated half of the congregation by preaching a difficult truth. You're out. I wouldn't want that gig either. So, of course, we don't incentivize preachers to say the difficult things because the elders lack the ability to stand behind their guy and go, no, that's truth. I don't care if half the congregation walked away. That's truth. And we're standing on that. I think that's one of the biggest issues why we don't see it. It's not just the preachers, it's who's standing behind them.
I've talked about this before. There was a book called The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt. Fantastic book. I think everyone should read it. Most people probably aren't going to go read it, and so that's okay. The main thing that he gets at is the protection, the safe spaces thing that has arisen on college campuses, and this idea that people have to be protected from truths or things that they don't like and all that, and how dangerous it is, and just protection in general. It's over mothering, the helicopter parent thing, and how we've changed from a society into that. If you're not going to go read the book, I will recommend on firstthings.com, I think it is. They had an article this last week on something called the Longhouse, and he's just talking about how matriarchal societies had this structure called the Longhouse, and we've morphed into this matriarchal society where that's a mom's job, is to put her arm around the kid and say, I'm sorry you're hurt, and I'm sorry you scraped your knee, I'm sorry, I'm here to make you feel better. And there's a need for that at times, and the gospel does that at times, but there's also the need, and that's why you need both sides of this to say, this is wrong. You got hurt because you were doing what you were not supposed to do, and you need to learn a lesson from that. But it's all made, motherly advice rather than motherly and fatherly. And here's where you go. So there's some reading material for you if you want to dig deeper on this.
The Jack Wilkie Book Club.
Back again.
I was just going to say, I love the quote. I think it was Vodi Bakum that said, for a lot of Christians, they believe the 11th commandment, which is thou shalt be nice, and they ignore the other 10. And it's the one that's elevated, because you think about the concept of truth. Truth is repelling to people in today's culture. And that was, again, to go back to the Matt Walsh video, one of the things he pointed out is that he was saying things that were true, and yet he was the recipient of, again, more ire and more anger than the person who was speaking the untruth. And that is something that should be incredibly alarming. But I want to ask you guys, as we get into the next aspect here, about sarcasm, and about kind of the way in which we speak to people, the way in which we speak the truth. Is there a place for sarcasm? I certainly have my thoughts. I think you read the New Testament. I think you read Paul's writing. I think you read some of the words of Jesus. Seems to be that, I don't think that I don't think the apostles were pulling Jesus back when he was in Matthew 23, when he was going at the Pharisees with a, metaphorical baseball bat. I don't think they were going at Jesus, man, that tone, you really need to dial that back a bit. They're not going to receive that very well. I don't see that. But what do you guys have to say about this idea of, is there a place for sarcasm?
Well, I think we can hide behind sarcasm and get to the ungodly point. Get to the point where it is nasty. And we do have to guard against that. However, I don't see how you could read Elijah on Mount Carmel and come away with anything other than, that's hilarious. And that's a lot of sarcasm. Maybe your God is going to the bathroom.
Maybe he's on vacation.
Maybe he's on vacation. Where is he? I mean, that's sarcasm, and it's hilarious. You read it and it's genuinely funny. that's mean, Elijah. That's so mean. Why would you have to do that? It's like, because my God's bigger and better and he's going to win. And that's really what's come down to. We're going against prophets of Baal that are killing people, killing babies, things like that. We take a hard stand. And if there is sarcasm to be had, we can't use it to, again, mask our ungodliness, to mask our nastiness. But yeah, I think it can be used appropriately. Personally, Jack, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes people say, well, they were inspired prophets, apostles. That was, Jesus, and we're not Jesus. No, but aren't we supposed to emulate Jesus? And there is a time, there are ideas, things that need to be mocked, things that need to be put in their place. And so I think things like satire and all that are useful. On the other hand, as you alluded to, that it is very easy to use that stuff as a cover to say, I can do whatever I want. I can be as harsh as I want. I can be as rude as I want. It doesn't mean that it's well placed. It's, your word are seasoned like salt. Well, sometimes salt has a bit of a, powerful, overpowering taste a little bit. And so you be careful, the degree to which you're using it, but that doesn't mean there's no use for, things that some people look at and go, oh, that's just not nice. Well, again, that's the wrong standard. Is it what's needed to be heard? Is it the thing that gets the point across best? And sometimes, yes.
Well, and there's an aspect, we can also use it passive aggressively, where we don't have the guts to come out and say it. So we'll use sarcasm as a passive aggressive way to say what we want to say. That's not okay either. Come out and say it. That's one of the things I appreciate about this Matt Walsh video is there was no mincing of words. I didn't have to get to the end and go, where did he stand? And you see guys like Tim Keller.
What was he really saying?
Yeah, you see guys like Tim Keller that are really big in Christendom, and you get to the end of the video and you go, wait, so is he okay with homosexuality? Is he not okay with, where does he stand on this? Like, that's a problem. If you're preaching the word of God and people get down or they stop watching your video and go, what does he believe? There's a time and place for, and the appropriate sarcasm is we're getting the point across, however it may be. Will, sorry.
Well, and Jack started the video talking about this. There's so much emphasis on just simply protecting people's feelings. And the problem is we are now doing that at the expense of truth. And again, we're not just talking about the transgenderism issue that was the context of the video. Again, we're talking about here in the church, where we are so overly concerned with, man, if we hurt their feelings, they're not going to come back on Sunday morning. Sure, they don't come on Sunday night or Wednesday night. They're not very committed to the lifestyle of Christ, but hey, we really want them here Sunday morning, and that's a really good thing that they're here. And so, listen, we can't send them to hurt their feelings. Listen, that's not the way the New Testament reads. That's not the way that, again, this overemphasis on simply being nice and protecting each other's feelings. And people are going to say, so you guys are saying we don't need to be loving. It's not what we're saying, but being loving doesn't mean protecting somebody's feelings at all costs. And I think that's really the point of this whole thing is we are absolutely to be loving. We are absolutely to be kind. We are absolutely to show the love of Christ. Sometimes that takes place at the expense of somebody's feelings and at the cost of somebody's feelings being quote unquote hurt or them being offended.
Go ahead.
Oh,
sorry. I was just going to say, we mentioned the biblical examples of Jesus, of Paul, of Elijah. John the Baptist is another one. You could look at the prophets. You could look at Nathan. You were the man, David. Like, wow, back up, Nathan. That hurts. That's rude. How dare you?
That was to the king of Israel, by the way.
Exactly. I mean, who could have lopped off his head if he so chose, as the king. But that was the tone. So the biblical examples. But I think the biggest thing, Jack, and this is probably what you're getting us into, is we need people who understand the times and understand the need of the times. Get us into that, Jack.
Yeah. It's not the time for nuance. It's not the time for fine-tuned discussions. When we all agree on like 98% of things, then we can, just give a lot of grace on, okay, we all agree on that. Let's meet on this. We're deciding whether a man is a man and a woman is a woman. Like, we need just black and white, very plain truths. And again, the worst people in this are not the people who are saying that white is black and black is white, and that, up is down and down is up. The worst people are the ones going, hey, you're going to hurt his feelings if you say up is up and down is down, and that he's wrong. And we brought up on a podcast episode a few months ago, the Emperor's New Clothes. I think Will, as our resident young person, had not heard that fable. Have you looked that up yet? Have you gotten familiar with it?
Yes, I have been educated on
He's
that.
been educated. See, you stick around us, you learn a couple things. But if you're familiar with it, if you're not familiar with it, go look it up. It's a pretty quick synopsis. You've got to be the kid who says, hey, he's not wearing clothes. But everyone else went along with it because we're just supposed to. No, you're not. Be the guy that swims upstream and says, No, that's not how it is. The truth is this, no matter what anybody else has to say. And so, number one, be the truth teller. Number two, don't be the tone police. Number three, when you see the tone police, don't let them stop you. Blow right past them. Do not worry about these people. These are the people we have to start ignoring and getting out of the way in the church to start improving the situation where we are. Anything else before we close?
The right people are going to be attracted to the truth. Well, we might offend a lot of people. You know, if I offend 9, but 1 goes, that's it. That's the word of God. That's what I need. Bingo. Well, that's all we're looking for.
Which, by the way, is what the
get
apostles
the
did in the New Testament. They offended a lot of people.
Yes. Shake the dust off your feet. To the right person, the truth is going to be glorious. It's going to be something that they chase with their entire life. So don't be swayed by, what if we offend him? I watched the Matt Walsh video and go, this guy gets it. That's what we need, is people who go, you get it. And if everybody else is offended, let him be offended.
And that's something that's one final point that he makes, is preaching to the choir is good because it says, hey, we're all on the same team. We agree on these truths. The world is trying to shake us off of it, but we have each other. We need to do that. And the tone police don't let that happen. So I want to thank everyone who's watching live. Again, if you are, let us know you're here, drop a comment, and be sure to click like, as I've said before. Facebook, if they need to see people like it, they need to see people comment with it. And so please do so. If you're watching it later, do the same. If you're catching it on YouTube, thanks for watching. We want to make these available so people can come back and catch them later on. And so, yeah, every Thursday night, 7:00. Again, Will and Rachel will be at CYC this weekend.
And I was going to say too,
booth.
if you stop by the booth, let us know you're a deep thinker. We want to know, and we'll be excited to see you.
Absolutely. Be sure to check that out, and we'll talk to you guys next week.